Hi everyone, this is the second tutorial video on how to use the fast music system for peer-to-peer low latency music making. This video deals more with the use of the fast music box, or what I'll call the FMB. As you can see, I have opened up to the page that opens when you are hardwired from your fast music box. And let's go to what that looks like right here. As most of you know, Christian Höhne from Simonics has developed this little CPU with a Raspberry Pi and a case. And basically it's a little computer that we run fast music box with the operating system all by itself on your monitor, hardwired from Ethernet in your office with a keyboard and a mouse. So that is running separately from your laptop or computer in your office. Okay, so here's the front of the fast music box. As you know, when you turn it on, you get little green and red lights in the opening. And we're going to look at the back, right? So you'll notice in your office, the Ethernet cable is plugged into this Ethernet port. These are what I refer to as USB 3 USB ports, okay? Certain devices are USB 2 or USB 3. This is a little more advanced USB port, and then these are called USB 2. What you plug into these are your keyboard, your mouse, things like that. You'll see those already connected to your fast music box in your office. These little ports are mini video USB-C connections to your monitor that is now in your studio. This is the power cord connection for the Raspberry Pi fast music box, and this is your power button. As you know, in the Argon 1 box that I gave you in your office, there are instructions that tell you the functionality of this power button. Pushing it once turns the fast music box on and should bring up your screen on your display, computer display in your office. Generally, you want to make sure you turn the fast music box on first and then allow it to boot up your screen that's connected to the keyboard and the mouse. Pressing and holding it for 3 seconds turns everything off. Also, when you notice, when you turn this on, this also turns on your PreSonus audio interface, which is also connected in your office. So notice in the back of the fast music box, your PreSonus is connected via USB connection. We have moved it to USB 2. There's information that says it works in USB 3. Recently, John Cecils and I realized that it really only works in this black one. So make sure it's always plugged into one of the black ones, and your keyboard is plugged into the other one, and your mouse is plugged into your keyboard. Okay? So let's go back to the PreSonus settings. So this is going to turn on all and of itself. You also want to make sure that this little 48V button is pushed. This is something called phantom power. This powers the MXL microphone that you have been supplied in your office. Your microphone is plugged into this port right here, port number 1, and the volume that controls it is this number 1 dial right here. Number 2, you don't need to worry about unless you get a second microphone. We can talk about that later. Here is your headphone volume. Obviously, turn it up, turn it down. This is the main kind of gain. It's not really volume, but it's a way to control if you're getting clipping on the microphone, if things get really loud. You can play with minus 80 decibels up to plus 10 decibels on that little dial. This little mixer dial here is kind of interesting. A lot of the audio interfaces don't have it. Yours does. Ian Howell and people from Fast Music have suggested on this model that you keep this button turned all the way over to the right to playback. Okay, so that's the settings for that. Now, once everything is up and running, right, you've turned on your fast music box, the screen comes on, it might wait a little bit and just have this symbol, okay, that appears. Once everything starts processing, the fast music box wakes up, it's going to take you to this page. This is a really cool page. So you can click on system status and you can see all the hardware, the Raspberry Pi, what it is, blah, blah, blah. The thing you're really kind of going to be interested in on this page is the update version. Christian Hona, the developer, sends out updates periodically, and you just want to make sure that this is fairly current. Right now, the most current one is 8/17/2020, so we know we have the updated software. Next, also, I should mention, it's a really nice thing to know that when everything's functioning correctly, you get these green check marks. And in a second, we'll talk about this red X. It's really not that important for the SoundJack status. So I'm going to go to network status. I'm going to pull down this data. And this is kind of interesting because it does have a lot of different information about your gateway, the connection to your Ethernet, et cetera, if you care. And then also it's presented via a graph how the latency speeds in milliseconds are going out across the Ethernet. So that can be an interesting thing for you to look at also if you want to take the time. Sound card status. This is kind of fun. When your headphones are plugged in, if you click on this little music note here, it should play you a little song to know that your speakers and everything are working. So that's a check. One other really good thing you need to know is to click this settings button here, especially at school. I'm not going to click it off here because I'm at home, but this Wi-Fi enabled box, I need you to uncheck it, okay? Because at school, if we do not, the Fast Music Box continually sends out a Wi-Fi signal. Whether we are connected as I am right now, I will show you, I'm connected to the Ethernet, okay? I'm connected, I have my laptop connected to the Ethernet as well as my Fast Music Box. And the way I'm able to do that, you might want to buy what's called one of these Giga Ethernet, not an extender, but a way to hook up 5 separate Ethernet lines or devices at the same time. So I have one of these at home and I have one in my office, and I connect the main Ethernet cord, or you would from your office, into this port right here. And then you would connect an Ethernet cable from the Fast Music Box right here, and then you would connect another one from your computer into one of these. That enables the Fast Music Box and your computer to be running via wired Ethernet in your office. And you don't have to rely on this Wi-Fi signal up here, which some of you have seen. Sometimes if you don't have Ethernet, you pull this down and notice there is a Fast Music address. You all need to know which address that is because they start to overlap with one another, especially on our floor where Jeremy and Jennifer and Andrew and I are. So for right now, our purposes, you are going to turn your Wi-Fi off and you're going to turn it off on this page down here. So I'm going to leave mine on because it doesn't really matter. There's also soft buttons down here to reload, to reboot, and to shut down. Now, as of today's date, this time in late August, right now, when we're going to go to the stage and the control panel, you cannot tab back to this page. The only way you can get back to this page using the monitor, keyboard, and mouse is if you reboot. And you reboot by double tapping on the power cord here. Double tapping on it or just pressing it quickly twice reboots it. Okay? So now let's move on. You want to go to the control panel. You're going to click that little button right there. It says this is talking about the beta version, so you want to stay on the old version. They're having a new version roll out in the middle of September that we will all use. But for now, don't worry about that. Just click OK so that you get to this page, okay? There's nothing to download because your software is running on the Fast Music Box, okay? You've already registered, so then you log in. Again, here or at work, when we are now connected to those separate monitors, keyboard, and mouse, you need to register or sign in every time. It doesn't remember you. Here it remembers me at home. Don't know the difference, but it does on my Mac. So anyway, we get to this page, and as you know, you don't need to download anything. I'm going to go to the stage. And it takes a second for the control stage to open. Here we go. So notice, and I'm glad this did this, notice that this gauge right here is red. So that really kind of means something's up. And also next to my name, where's my name? Am I signed in? I'm right there. It's yellow. So you know something's wrong if it's yellow or red, or if this is pink. And the most common thing that's wrong is in this little column here. Number one, this is a kind of the main control column. We're going to leave almost all of this alone. Expert settings, public stage, we're going to leave alone. Actually, there is a way for you to have everyone join a private room. We can talk about that later, but for now, keep it public stage. Manually accept calls, leave it alone, leave it alone. These two, arrow to the right, arrow to the left, they denote input signal, output signal. So what you need to do is, you need to make sure, since I have a Scarlet interface, that both my input and output are that audio interface. Yours will say audio box. So if both of these do not say audio box, this will not turn gray, which means you're good to go. Now, we're leaving 48,000 hertz alone. We're leaving sample buffer 64 pretty much alone, especially at school. Send channels is interesting. That's how many microphones you have plugged in to your device. You have 2 ports, microphone ports. I have 2. At home, I have 2 microphones. So I use send channels 2. You will say send channel 1. Okay? This is your local loopback signal. You can slide that to the right most of the time. You really don't need to worry about it. These 2, you don't need to worry about at all. Now, this network buffer number here, right, is one of the only 3 things you really need to touch. And really, once it's set in your studio, you really shouldn't have to play with it too much. Maybe if you're home, you might want to raise this to say 256 or 512. It's dependent on raising it, dependent on how far away you are from the person you're connecting with. At school, kind of an ultimate setting for everything is 64 for that, 128 for the network buffer. And in a second, we're going to talk about this column right here, which we're going to call the jitter buffer. So this column is the only other column we're going to worry about besides your sample buffer and your network buffer and this column right here. As you can see, this is all the people who are on at the moment. It also has a test, a local host, which I can click on. You're going to connect to the test, and it shows me in milliseconds how fast one way it's going to the local host, wherever that may be, and then returning. So really you're talking about a 27 millisecond latency. We always want to have these sliders, whoever you're working with, and your own name also over to the right. It really doesn't have any bearing on volume too much. It's just one of the settings you should do, okay? So I am going to turn that one off, and now I'm going to come back here. Really, you don't have to worry about this column, this column, this column. And now here we are again at the jitter buffer. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn on the local host so you can see what we do with it. So I'm going to move my slider over. Notice this is solid green at 4. And if you click on the menu, you can see it goes all the way up. I mean, super, super high. So the lower this number, the lower your latency is going to be. Lower is better. Look at, just by switching it to 1, I've lowered it to under 5 milliseconds, which is blazingly fast. At school, it's going to be that and below. Pretty much at school, you can pretty much leave your buffer, this jitter buffer, at a 1 or a 2. You shouldn't have to touch it again. I'm going to turn this off. So the way we're using it at school is we will need to know the collaborative artists' login names, which will appear here, okay? Once that name appears, you and your student in your office, or in Abby's case, she's going to see 2 names. She's going to see her student in her office, and she's going to see the pianist in the collab office. And it's my experience that the person, one person should invite the other 2 people into the room. So if Abby was online and if Keith Teepin was online, I would go to their names. I would slide. I'm going to slide my own name over like that. You can't really invite myself, but I would slide that over. I would slide Keith Teepin's name over, and then I would click on the green arrow for Keith and for Abby, and that would send an invitation, which they can accept or decline. Then, once they accept, the three of you should be connected, okay? You all have, or you are getting, open back headphones so that you can hear everything, and you can adjust the sound from your, remember, from your headphones, here, right? And you also want to make sure that if that mic's not working, that this 48V phantom power button is pressed. On the Focusrite models, this button does not stay on when you turn the unit off. It's my experience that in the PreSonus, this does. However, you can bump it and turn it off. It is the most common cause of the microphone not working when you want it to. I am going to now go back to the stage, and now I am going to close one of these windows, because then what you're going to want to do is I am going to close that one, and I'm going to close the Gigabit Ethernet, and I'm actually going to close the PreSonus because you've seen enough about it. Now I'm going to open a video component that we've discussed called Jitsi Meet, and I'm going to type in meet.jit.c, and that takes me to this. I'm going to say go. This is a great peer-to-peer video conferencing site, like Zoom, but way better than Zoom. And you say yes, and then I'm going to come down here. See, my face came up already, and here I am. I'm going to invite more people. So I kind of have bad light. One thing that's cool, see here, oh look, it got better. So these three dots down here, which you can do on Jitsi, is you can click on that, go to manage video quality, and instead of high definition, standard definition is just fine. Okay? I'm a little slow, I've got too many things, so my mouth isn't as synced up as it could be. Anyway, to invite another person, all I do, or two people, is click invite more people. And you can see, I can share the link, I can share the meeting invitation, I can do it this way, I can send it all these different ways, through mail, through text, however you want. Once they get the invitation, they click on it, and they have joined the Jitsi meeting. And what we want to do with SoundJack is then, you want to turn off the microphone that's being used in the video source, all right? Because now I'm hooked into the stage at the same time, and then you and your student and your pianist can be on Jitsi Meet. This is the same. I am going to off, and I'm going to this, so this might crash. That. Here I am, and the easy way, LiveLab, actually you can see for me, has a little better sound quality. And again, what I would do is I would go up here and I would turn off the mic, and all you have to do to share this in LiveLab is just share this URL. You would just copy this and copy it and save it and send it to whoever you want to use. So that's LiveLab. And again,